to the left of that first respondent goes first next. We worked on that sentence for a long time. Candidates will have 1 minute to answer each question. And our timekeepers, please wave in the air. We'll keep our clock and provide candidates with 10-second, 5-second, and times up signals. We ask the candidates to honor those time limits. Don't let me get involved. And then all candidates will get a 1-minute closing statement. Tonight's questions will be posed by a representative of Estado West Coalition who lives or works on the West Side. So here we go, Mr. Pablos. You're first with the opening statement, followed by Dr. Rocha Garcia, and in consecutive order.
Thank you. Buenas tardes. I'm so happy to be here today. I appreciate the invitation. I'm honored. I came here in 1985, 40 years ago, to the West Side. I came here as a 17-year-old to St. Mary's University. Lived here on the West Side for 8 years. And let me tell you, for me, this is a source of pride. I've worked on projects on the West Side. Right now, I just took a selfie under the veladora. One of my mentors, Jesse Trevino, miss him so much, will remind us of our culture through art. And I'm just happy to be here today. I want to be able to have a nice conversation, especially about economic development on the West Side. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Adriana Rocha Garcia and I represent City Council District 4. I was born on the west side of San Antonio in zip code 78207 on Leal Street, just a few blocks from here. I'm very proud of that. At the intersection of Martinez and Alazan Creek, we have the opportunity, I think, to make sure that we continue to invest in this area. I moved over to the southwest part of town with my parents later, one because we were evicted. We moved over to the east side for a little bit, and then eventually my cousins allowed us to stay with them while my parents saved some money to buy a home over on the southwest side. That's where I've been growing up. That's where I grew up. I grew up in zip code 78242, the zip code with the most crime for a while. That was in Indian Creek. But I'm grateful to have the opportunity to serve you today, and looking forward to hopefully La Popular is still open, because my dad would take me to La Popular when I was a little girl, and I know now they have the new one. But thank you all for being here.
I am running to be your next mayor. We're going to talk about policy, but I want to talk today about who I am. I am the daughter of a woman who was born on Chihuahua Street, a man who grew up in the Alazan Apache courts. And I worked, my fight for this community first began as a disability attorney right across the street at my first law office. People like my incredible great-grandmother, Josefa Narro, who was widowed very young and raised 8 children, but she owned 2 restaurants. They told her that she would crumble, but she rose. They told me the same thing. I couldn't become a lawyer. I'm from the West Side. I couldn't own a business. I couldn't get an MBA. I couldn't become a council person. But Josefa taught me differently, and I knew that it was possible. So I'm running to be the next mayor of San Antonio to show all the little girls that what is possible. Thank you.
Hola a todos, qué gusto estar aquí en el corazón de San Antonio, y a los que nos están viendo en Telemundo también muchas gracias. Me llamo Beto Altamirano y me estoy postulando para ser su próximo alcalde de nuestra bella ciudad de San Antonio. Yo soy de la frontera, soy hijo de inmigrantes. Fui a estudiar a UT Austin y me gradué también de mi maestría de Harvard. Y hace más de una década escogí a la ciudad de San Antonio para empezar mi empresa, mi familia y construir comunidad. Y cuando empecé mi empresa Iris, lo hice para arreglar los problemas que vemos en nuestra ciudad con el 311 San Antonio Mobile Platform, que ha ayudado a miles de personas en nuestra ciudad, dándole acceso a los residentes de San Antonio a que se comuniquen con su gobierno municipal. Yo sé que estamos enfrentando muchos retos en San Antonio, pero también me emociona el futuro de nuestra ciudad. Pero lo vamos a hacer juntos. Juntos vamos a crear el cambio que necesitamos y juntos vamos a crear un mejor futuro para San Antonio. Es un gusto.
Good evening.
question will be asked by Ryan Cole. He's the president and CEO of Prosper West. Dr. Rocha Garcia he'll answer first.
Good evening. There are significant infrastructure projects coming to the west side, including via Silver Line, the West Side Creeks Restoration Project, and construction along major corridors, including Commerce and Buena Vista. How will you protect small business owners and mitigate the risks that these projects bring to their ability to operate before the damage is done, not after?
I think that we need to continue to invest in getting the word out to our business owners, being very forthright with them, but it's going to their businesses. It's letting them know, it's walking door to door, it's making a plan with them before it's too late. We know that there's needed infrastructure on the west side of San Antonio, but it shouldn't come at the price of small business owners having to shut down their locations, especially because they employ so many of our local workers. Es importante que tengamos en mente de que necesitamos, sí, tenemos que invertir en nuestros barrios, pero también tenemos que invertir en las personas que nos están ayudando a sostener a nuestras familias. Infrastructure is critical, but we know that small businesses account for a majority of the jobs in our community, and we need to make sure that we prioritize them and continue to invest in programs and tools that will help them be successful with the construction and beyond.
You have to start with community. You have to talk to the business owners, talk to the neighborhoods before the project starts, during the project, and even after the project. You have to make sure with community members and business owners that they understand the project and they're getting input into that project. Over and over we see where the city and even the state will go through and work on a road and not talk to the business owners, not knock on the door. They'll give them a flyer, but it could be the cashier up front, not the property owner, not the business owner. So I've introduced a policy to include a liaison for every project all along a corridor, and it happened in my district in Old Highway 90. We had a liaison that went to all the businesses and make sure that they got their input before the project, to make sure that it was going to work for those businesses. Also during the project, to make sure that while the project's going on, there weren't any hiccups for the businesses and the neighborhoods, and even after, to make sure that the cleanup was done properly. Thank you.
I think it comes down to the idea that neighborhoods, right, in the west side, they want to be in control of their destiny. They want to be in control of their neighborhoods. And it comes down to neighborhood economics. And over-communication should always be the goal when leading these projects here in San Antonio. Construction in San Antonio has been problematic, to say the least. And it's put a damper on a lot of efforts by small businesses, not just on the west side, but across San Antonio. That's why I'm proposing what I call a construction zone. So that can be the glue between CPS, SOS, Public Works, and the private sector, and the small businesses of San Antonio, informing them along the way of the type of challenges that they are facing in terms of construction and development. And I believe in the power of public involvement as well. I serve as a public involvement specialist at the Alamo Area MPO. And I think we should be proactive and hold these type of town halls before we even start development on any part of the west side.
I'll remind candidates to speak directly into the microphone. Gina, you might want to move it up. There you go.
Thank you. I think so I had a small business roundtable, and the feedback is pretty consistent in that, we don't need a plan for you to save us. We just need you to finish the construction so that folks can actually get to our businesses and spend their money. So this is not only a pain point for residents, certainly for tourists, but also for those businesses, small businesses that are already struggling in this economy. And so I would want to make sure that we are holding folks accountable where those projects are delayed. I would also want to make sure that we're thinking about the small businesses on the west side in the context of our city's other plans and goals. Central, for example, their goal downtown is to have 75% of those businesses, so storefront businesses, be small businesses. Well, many of those should be from the west side. Similarly, when we're thinking about our large we're the 21st largest manufacturing exporting region in the country. I want to make sure we grow that. I want to make sure we include west side small businesses in that growth. And certainly we have the opportunity with the Cyber Command that the governor is looking to invest here, that we are thinking about west side cyber-related small businesses as part of that. And I would lead to make sure we do.
I serve as chair of the transportation and the body that construction within San Antonio, within downtown. And we had a meeting just this week where we brought in representatives from the building and the construction industry. We sat down and talked about the delays in construction, how they're adversely affecting businesses, what we can do about it. We need to look at short-term, what's going to happen in a community, and then long-term so that we have planning in advance to understand if there's going to be future construction or activities that are going to interfere with small businesses, that they have a heads up in advance and that they know what's going on. In my district, when we're doing any kind of construction, I actually have people on my staff go out door to door, business to business, and give them information a couple weeks ahead of time so they're prepared. I think the city needs to be the posture, take the posture of being out front ahead of time of future growth and development.
As a small business owner, I understand what small business owners are going through. And right now, what I hear consistently is they feel like they're being ignored. As the chairman of the Hispanic Chamber, I work with many small businesses in ensuring not only that the infrastructure around them works for them, but also making sure that the government supports them. Local government is there to support small businesses, to empower small business owners, not just with infrastructure, but with crime, public safety, all the issues related to access to capital, making sure that their employees have access to things such as daycare, particularly restaurants. I have a restaurant policy right now that includes making sure that we have the mechanism for ensuring that the employees have the childcare that they need. And so listening to them is really key, and that's what I'm hearing that is lacking.
The next question will be posed by Jamie Barrera, CEO of WebNeed and former CEO and founder of the Lift Fund.
Good evening. Given the recent City Council decision to remove a high-value area from the West Side Tax Increment Reinvestment Zone, or the TERS, for the new baseball stadium, this means that future dollars has been taken away from the West Side. How will you ensure that the West Side gets its fair share of infrastructure funding, whether in the city's annual budget, future bond programs, or other financing, so that residents and businesses see real investment in streets, drainage, housing, public spaces, and place-making?
We have an equity budget it's a so-called equity budget at the city, meaning the zip codes, the districts that have less should get more. Those are a lot of words that get thrown around, including equity, and that doesn't actually happen. Every year, every city council person gets $1 million to spend in their districts. Everybody gets the same. So I'm block walking in my area, and I hear, I need a pothole here or there. I go and I fund that pothole. I go to the inner west side or District 1, and they say they need a pothole. I say, well, ask your council person. They ran out of money a long time ago. That's not equity. So we need to wipe that slate clean. We need to make sure that every district is not getting the exact same amount of money, that we're focusing on the areas that have long been discriminated against and long been left behind, and making sure that that's real equity, making sure that the inner west side, the inner east side, south side, and parts of downtown have the funding that they need to be sure that their projects are getting done timely. Thank you.
So San Antonio is growing. In the next 15 years, you're looking at 4 million people. The question is not whether we're going to grow, it's how do we prepare for that growth. Infrastructure, economic development, public safety. But there's generational disinvestment in many parts of town, including 78207. My office, I started my company here on the west side of San Antonio. Now that is my campaign HQ. And I struggle to walk from my office to a coffee shop because there's no sidewalks. And I'm talking about infrastructure because it's critical for our children and grandchildren here on the west side of San Antonio. So when I think about that generational disinvestment, I also look at the plans that we have today. There's a bike network plan today that is going to invest over $3 billion across the city of San Antonio. We must receive the fair share of money and dollars to the west side of San Antonio so that we can have more sidewalks, lighting, and access to public infrastructure. I also commend the efforts of the Star West Fund, which is $25 million to fund and create and preserve affordable housing that could nurture the west side of San Antonio. Those are the efforts I'm looking forward to.
What I read about that So I think it starts not just with kind of what do we want to do in the future, but really recognizing the essence of that challenge, which is unfortunately the community was not providing sufficient input. And I would love to look at the numbers and see if there was even sufficient compensation for the 17 parcels that were transferred over. Certainly, we're going to look at the budget and make sure we've got a minimum level of service and infrastructure investments. But at the end of the day, it starts with making sure that we are actually listening to the folks that live in the community and making sure that we're thinking about investments. It's not just certain parts of our town that say, oh, I don't want that to happen here, so it's not going to happen here. Like that affordable housing project up north, that's, you know, those folks said that's not the right place for this. Well, they were listened to. I think the West Side should be listened to as well.
We in general as a city must support more development in the West Side. We need to expand the West Side tours to where new development will come around. I think the West Side overall is underdeveloped, and we need to invest more as a city and encourage private investment to invest more in the West Side. You know, we look at our budget as a tool to help people. A budget is a moral document, and it needs to address the greatest needs that we have in our community. People in District 9 over the years and across the North Side have said, well, we want to invest plenty of money in our part of town, but I always say to them, the city budget should be used where the greatest needs are. And right now, the greatest needs are within the West Side, the East Side, inside Loop 410, not necessarily outside Loop 410. It doesn't mean we ignore needs in other parts of town, but we need to make up for the lack of development, the lack of support in the West Side, the East Side, and South Side for the city over the years.
The West Side has excellent centers of excellence. We have 3 universities here. We have the ability to attract investment. We just have to come together. And we have to work together as a community. I've been able to attract investment not only to the state of Texas, but here in San Antonio. And I think it's about time that we do that for the West Side, for the East Side, and South Side. I think it's been neglected for too long, for whatever reason. And I think it's time to really focus on doing that, because year after year, we keep hearing the same thing over and over again, and I think it's time to buckle down and really focus on what it is that we need to do for this community, helping small businesses, making sure that we have the right tools in place for economic development that will impact this community once and for all. And yes, there are places here where there are no sidewalks, where there's flooding going on. I mean, why does that continue to happen? I want to be able to work with the council people from this area to make sure that that doesn't happen and that we bring the investment that's required.
I think one of the first things that we need to do is take a look at the different TERS and see why they are not funded equally. One of the great things that we have is an advocate for each district. And in this council district, Councilwoman Terry Castillo let me know the day of the vote that the folks who were involved didn't get to vote to see if the money could be utilized, essentially. And so I've taken 3 or 4 abstention votes in my entire career, 2 most recently during this term. That was one of them. I was not prepared to vote in favor when the councilwoman sitting right next to me told me that they were not consulted, that they did not get a fair vote. And it keeps happening. We keep hearing about things that city staff is doing, and it's going to take some additional responsibility from your mayor to question, to make sure that in those evaluations that we do annually, that the city manager and his staff are held responsible.
The next question is from Jaime Macias, a West Side resident and owner of Jaime's Place. He'll pose his question to Mr. Altamirano.
Good evening, everybody. I have witnessed a considerable proliferation of unhoused people in the near downtown West Side. For decades, candidates have stood where you are and said the same things over and over about how to address this issue. More police, better response times, platitudes about taking care of one another, promises for more affordable housing and public housing, and the issue has only grown larger and more entrenched. What concrete, feasible plans do you have to address the root causes of this issue so that both unhoused individuals and West Side community members are better supported? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, first of all, we have to invest in more affordable housing in San Antonio, yes or yes. And that's a reality. And I'm discouraged by some of the votes that have been taken in council against affordable housing in San Antonio. And housing is important in San Antonio because there's about 51% of San Antonians are one paycheck away from being homeless or homeless. And this is data coming from San Ministries. And last summer, I spent about 2 months shadowing Lakeisha Baker at San Ministries. What I also want to see more of is low-barrier housing efforts in San Antonio, where we can get people off the streets, rehab, and get them ready to work with opportunities in the job market. Third, I want to also help our youth in San Antonio. We have disconnected youth, which is people, young people between 16 and 25 that are not working or studying. We need more after-school programs to get them off the street and off trouble. And that's what I want to double down on. Those are 3 examples of how I want to be proactive as mayor.
Thank you for the question. To your point about some of the root causes, I think we first have to look at the immediate process to ensure that folks are not prematurely evicted from their home, right? I think that's really important that folks are afforded a due process, especially as we enter a time of more economic uncertainty where folks will become more challenged in paying those costs. We also want to make sure we're working very closely with the county in areas of mental health, for example, as well as substance abuse, to ensure that we are meeting the need as best we can, again, in light of the uncertainty in our own budgets. I think we need to invest, looking at the upcoming bond, in more permanent supportive housing. I also had a conversation, longer term, I think we also need to clear as much headspace as we can to ensure that folks have a place to land. Opportunity Home, for example, is a place where we need to ensure that we are helping people become self-sufficient to meeting that 5-year goal that they have, and looking at city investments, whether that's childcare or helping folks get their GED, or even transportation that allows them to do that.
Homelessness is everywhere. But the root cause of homelessness, though, is basically poverty. And that doesn't mean that everybody who's poor becomes homeless. But you also don't see wealthy people or even middle-class people homeless. They have resources to take care of themselves. What we need to do is we need to provide better resources to help people so they don't become homeless. That means we need to have more housing, more affordable housing. That means we need to have more jobs and better paying jobs. That means we need to have better health care so that people stay healthy. You know, we can't afford, or we don't have the resources, for example, to treat people who have mental health issues. We don't have enough beds for people who need to overcome alcoholism. We don't have enough treatment beds for people who are addicted to drugs. Yesterday, I had before City Council announced that we are going to relieve $60 million of debt to people who owe money. 45,000 families are being affected by that process.
In spite of best efforts, year after year, we continue to have systemic poverty in this community. Let me tell you why that is terrible. And that is because poverty is the root condition that drives many of the problems we have today, like homelessness, like crime, like our public health issues, like neighborhood crime. And so what I propose we do is let's start tackling that issue of poverty. And my plan involves ensuring that we have quality education, that we focus on making sure that we have the opportunities from an economic development perspective, that we bring jobs to this community, and then also that we focus on fiscal responsibility so that we can focus on the right things, investing in the right things, and that way we can at least start the process, because homelessness is just an extreme form of poverty. So we have to be able to address it. We have to be able to work with our NGOs that are already tackling that issue and make sure that they're well funded.
The 3 pillars of my focus as I'm running for mayor are housing, healthcare, and economic empowerment through education. That is a proactive approach. Upstream services are needed. During my tenure as a San Antonio Housing Trust president, for the 3 years that I've been president, we have created more than 7,000 units of housing. We need to continue to invest in housing. The strategic housing implementation plan, we're far from achieving our goals, and we need to continue at it. One of the things that I would love to propose is that housing bond. We don't have to wait for the next housing bond. As a matter of fact, a couple of the council colleagues and I have asked our city manager to not wait for 2027. How can we get a housing bond now that helps you all as well as you age in place? But further, the efforts that have been made before us by Pre-K for SA, how do we expand Pre-K for SA is another one of the things that I'd be looking at.
We as a community are in crisis when it comes to our unhoused community. And when we get presentations of the city, they always start with the point in time count. About 3,000 individuals in this city are unhoused. I don't buy it. I think there's a lot more. But what we're looking at is how to fix it. How do we get them in housed? And that's super important. But we're always talking about putting the fire out. What we have to figure out is how did the fire get started? So we're looking at, one of my big initiatives is for foster youth. The vast majority of unhoused people have spent some time in our foster care system. So I'm really proud to say I led the effort in the city to spend $7 million, the only municipal investment, so the largest municipal investment in the state of Texas for our foster youth. Because over and over they keep telling me, Melissa, you got nothing to do with that. The city has nothing to do with foster children. But we still represent them. So taking care of our foster youth, taking care of people with mental health conditions, people with substance abuse issues, and making sure we stop that fire before it starts.
Our fourth question will be asked by Rebecca Carrizales of the West Side Business Compañero.